super teams get hyped up and then never living up to expectations.
Elements 2.0, let's go, guys!
There's a lot there. Like there's a lot of things where the name value someone brings doesn't always match what that person is actually going to do or how that person is going to fit with the team. Like,
hello everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller here in the beautiful city of Copenhagen, joined by Martin Deficio Lynge, the head of esports at Refresh. I mean, those titles are like kind of foreign anyway.
There's a lot of titles. Yeah. I think the easy one for now is General Manager of Origin. Let's keep it simple. We can add more titles later.
We can add more titles. It's the double worded meaning, of course, especially because we're sitting in the Origin office right now in the gaming space, and we're sitting across Astralis gaming space, which is amazing. And of course, any CSGO fans know this. It's filled to the brim with trophies, and they had to start putting trophies anywhere else in the office and stuff.
It's true. They have asked if they can start putting trophies in our room. We have said no for now. Also because you guys can't see this, but actually on the wall over there, we have painted the Summoner's Cup, because we don't actually have it, but we painted it so we can imagine that we also could have our trophy. Not there yet. Astralis is taking up most of the space, and I have a feeling next year that more trophies are going to arrive. Hopefully, at least one of them will be League of Legends.
Rise. Okay. Trevor, divorce me. Were those the words you said to Quickshot when it was official that you were gonna leave the cast full time?
That would actually been pretty insane if it was. Like, if that's how you divorce someone, that would be pretty crazy. I sometimes like to run away from difficult conversations where emotions, will be a big part of it. So the way I kind of left Trevor was by almost ignoring him for a while and not responding to his messages. And then the official announcement came out of Origin made it into the LCS. And I mean, he obviously knew at least a little bit of it, but that's when it was like officially over. So I made Riot and the announcement speak for me, instead of having to call him and have the difficult conversation. I know it's horrible. Don't ever take this relationship advice. But that's actually how it ended up being. So he didn't know it was officially over until announcement.
That is heartbreaking, man.
I know, but it's way easier for me. It was so much easier.
Okay, well, one thing that probably wasn't as easy for you was the off-season in general. I mean, you are most likely very happy with the roster you managed to put together. But what was it like choosing your players, and how hard was it to get everyone on board?
So, this could be a super long answer, so I might try and cut it up into pieces, and you can ask another question in between. But first of all, when the off-season starts, this was obviously my first time in many, many years having to build a roster, back all the way to like end of 2013, when we built that original Lemondog/NIP lineup that didn't actually make it into the LCS, so that was a giant failure. Luckily, I'd succeeded 2 years before with the Copenhagen Wolves lineup that did make it in, so I guess 1-1. Mm-hmm. But here, because we joined obviously as a new team, we didn't have any players or any coaching staff for League of Legends, which makes the off-season very tricky at first, because most of the good players obviously want to see what kind of roster you have before they fully commit to a project. And that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of priorities if you are a top player, and probably the biggest priority for most of them will always be, can this roster do something? Can they go to Worlds? Can they win LEC? And if it is a yes, then they get more interested in joining. So that's obviously the tricky part at first. When you're competing against, let's say, G2 Esports, Wonder, Perks, these guys are already signed, so there's a lot of people who attract others. When we then start this off-season, I knew from the start, okay, I need my coaching staff as an early priority, because once I have my coach, at least my head coach, he will obviously have a huge say in what kind of players we want, because I don't want to just draft a roster and then find a coach after. And what if these guys do not fit together at all? You're going to get a horrible situation. So we managed to talk to Andre, and he really liked our project, and he became involved in kind of the building process. I'd already done some of the scouting together with Casper and our head of performance, and some of the interviews. So we kind of knew who we wanted, and a big part of Andre joining was that he actually agreed, and we agreed with each other on what kind of team we wanted to build. So okay, coach was kind of like we knew we wanted him, and then we said, okay, what exactly is it we're looking for before looking at names? Like, what types do we want? We wanted at least a couple of veterans, because we are in Copenhagen. We're gonna be traveling a little bit. We have a different culture that is taken straight from Astralis, which is like trying to be very professional, trying to put a lot of focus on things outside of the game. So we knew if you get 5 17-year-olds, they're probably not going to buy into it too much, and they're just going to want to play all the time. But if we get a couple of veterans, they've been in the scene for a while, they know the value of doing some things outside of the game, and they can also handle the travel because they've done it before, right? So we needed a couple of veterans for sure. We also wanted a lot of really vocal players, like players who could communicate in the game, players who could communicate outside of the game, both in VOD reviews, but also giving feedback about everything we're doing here. Because we're trying to build this, different kind of infrastructure. We're trying to build this location or this facility in a different city, than everyone else. So we need players who can actually tell us, hey, I kind of need this. Ooh, this is not too good. This is great, by the way. And again, having older players with more experience is a bit better to build up the foundation here year one. And then I think the last one was we needed a couple of carries where we knew the mechanical skill was extremely high, because if you have great mechanics, you can play in any meta, in the way I look at it. If it's an early game meta, you must be able to play carries, and you must be able to win your laning phase. You need great mechanics for that. If it's a late game meta, you need someone who is mechanically gifted enough to win a late game team fight for you on like a Zir or whatever AD carry. So it was very important for us to get that in our carry setups, and then we could get more supportive players around these different carries. So those were kind of the 3 criteria we were looking at. And I actually think we managed to nail it completely. Biased, of course. Because if you look at like veterans, communication, like we have Nukeduck, we have Mythy, we have Cold, like all 3 have gone to Worlds, all 3 have played in, big playoff games, finals, they played for many, many years. They are all known as smart players who communicate a lot in the game and outside the game. Perfect fit for us. Alfari was then the one we actually knew we wanted, but we weren't sure if he was going to match communication to the same level as the others, but 100% he's done that instantly. Like, he's extremely vocal about so many things, and he brings also that mechanical element from the top lane that I actually think a lot of fans have completely forgotten that he brings, because last year he was kind of stuck on supportive duty for a lot of it because Misfits had to play around bot side. But we are in a carry top meta, and Riot has made it very clear that they like this kind of early game aggressive style. This guy is one of the best, if not the best, individual like gifted laner in the top lane. And this is something I know other people have said in the past as well, like, he's gonna stomp people in lane.
You have the LAS seal of approval.
Approval on it as well. Like, individually, like when it comes to laning phase, Alfari is an absolute monster, which is gonna be a huge advantage. And then Patrick, or Sheriff from before, was kind of the young element we could add to the team, because the other 4 again have gone to Worlds and done everything. But Patrick obviously had only the 1 year in H2K, where I was a huge fan of him last year when I was a caster, because it was pretty obvious this was a young kid who was extremely talented, but he was put in a very difficult situation because H2K as a lineup obviously in the spring had to make a ton of roster changes, but then they did make playoffs where he obviously had a great performance, the entire run.
When they lost against Vitality, like he popped off in those series.
He's just a very, very, very good player already with just with ton of potential. So he still has a lot of things that he will improve on. And then in summer, people just kind of forgot about him when it was the Mage meta, and then H2K kind of fell apart. So to me, he was one of the most underrated players in the off season because of obviously people looking at the negative results of Summer Split H2K. But it was a kind of no-brainer, and he was actually my number 180 carry choice when the off-season started. To say, we need this guy, because if we compare him with some of the veterans, you're actually going to get a setup where he can really shine. And he's already, like, we've been here for like a week, boot camping, and we're already starting to see how he's picking up on a lot of the communication parts from some of the older players. And I think we just ended up getting a lineup that I actually didn't expect us to get based on how many of the top choices we actually got that I wanted. I thought we were for sure going to lose, a lot of them because we made. I know I said I was going to make this answer short, by the way, but I've definitely not made it short. So we made 9 plans for different kind of roster setups. Not necessarily like these 5 players, but more like these type of players. And you would put like, and Nuke Dog would be like an S tier mid laner, right? So he would be like in plan 1 and plan 2. And you'd be like, okay, what if Nuke Dog is gone? Then plan 3, you start going into like a rookie mid laner instead, or so on. And we made these different plans, and we actually ended up getting basically what we wanted from the top plans, because we knew we wanted Patrick, and we knew we wanted to pair Patrick with a veteran support. So we had, a good combo. And when we found out, of course, Mithy was available, that became a pretty easy choice for us to say we need to chase this guy because he's going to fit in with Patrick extremely well, and he's hungry, and he's angry. He wants to show everyone how good he can be, and that kind of motivation from a veteran player, you don't see that often. But when you get that kind of guy who's just like, just take me on this team, I will show everyone what I can do. I will practice so hard, just like destroy everything. We're just like, perfect, good.
You aced the interview.
Come in here, and then we just unleash the beast, and then we see. So we see what happens with it. But like early on, we, as I said, like we had our top plans, and we had 2 mid laners and 2 top laners in these top plans that we were looking at, and we got obviously 2 of them. It would be weird to get all 4, but we got mid and top we wanted 100%. We had 2 junglers we were looking at for top plans. We got one of them as well. So as you can see, we started actually getting the pieces put in extremely early, and the hurdle of we have no players so no one wants to join us, we managed to get past that, I think, by focusing a lot on talking about what Refresh and Astralis had done together, what our plans were for Copenhagen and for Origin, by kind of copying the same kind of infrastructure, the same kind of coaching staff from outside the game that would come in. For the fans who did see, there was the Origin video with Kasper Witt, obviously, who's a retired handball professional, who's like a legend in Denmark. And the performance team he's built that focuses on everything outside the game, whether it's like team doctor, nutritionist, physiotherapist, these kind of things, were things that attracted people that we could offer this here in Denmark. And then also just, I think, just the plans we had for the future kind of made the first couple of pieces say, okay, fine, I'll join even without a lot of other players being there. And the moment you get 1 or 2, especially once you get 1 or 2 big names, the other pieces just fall in very quickly. So I guess it was a tricky off season, but it was actually a lot of fun. I didn't sleep a lot, but in the end, I'm extremely proud and actually still very surprised that we managed to get this lineup put together, starting with nothing to this.
So you essentially got your dream team. Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what can we expect from the Deficio Dream Team? I'm going to start calling the Origin the Deficio Dream Team from now on, by the way.
Nuke Dog, man.
The year of the dog. I actually wanted to bring the ticket. I forgot it at home. I'm so sad. Yeah, that meme lives on and will never die, I hope. But what can we expect from Origin in the spring split, given that, okay, it's a new team, everyone has to kind of, get it going and fit together, but at the same time, you have 4 veterans from, I mean, if you count Afari, in my opinion, you should. Yeah. And you have Giotto, who's also very proven, like, everyone's proven on that team, so what area are we talking here? Like, top 3, top 4, at least playoffs, surely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, playoffs for sure is like anything outside of playoff would be a disappointment, but the boring thing to say is like results is not everything in spring. It's all about the process and so on. But obviously, Schalke didn't make playoffs into making the finals, so there is obviously a case to be made for just saying, hey, first split is all about synergy. It's 5 new players being put together. It's a coach who's only worked with Nuke Dog, right? So there's a lot there that needs to click. But I think because we have so many of the, as I said, like as you said as well, like the veterans who communicate a lot and communicate in a way that we think is super good in game. I think we're gonna click a little bit earlier than maybe some other teams. And I think just the overall, like the knowledge of the game that these players can bring means that we should be able to adapt pretty quickly to whatever the meta needs to be and what we need to do in the game. So I think for us, like playoffs for sure in spring is the goal. And I think every player in here would be disappointed if we don't make playoffs. And I think for summer then, that's where you can ask me after spring, right? But I'll say now, at least for me, I think competing for Worlds is the end goal for summer now. Maybe everything goes wrong, but I think we have the lineup. I think we have the organization to fight for playoffs fight for Worlds already year 1. And that's definitely what I think every player in here, if you ask them, what is your goal? It is make it to Worlds.
I mean, that's the goal of every player, of course. It's the goal of every player to win.
The goal with this team is to make it to Worlds.
Right. Very, very true. So you mentioned how Mythy is very hungry. Now the community, I mean, especially TSM fans are like, oh, dude, that guy was so trash last year. Like, go back to you, coming back from the NA retirement home. Can we, like, his last split on G2 had some difficult times. Yeah. Can we still expect the old OG Mythy to come back?
I will say, so it's hard for me to speak for him, but I honestly, yes, I think it's fair to have high expectations of Mythy returning to EU. I think him leaving from North America obviously was not very successful. He's talked about this many times as well. But I think it's given him new kind of motivation now that he returns. I think that the feeling of coming back to Europe, playing against different kind of players, different ping, all these kind of things just instantly like gives you another kick that makes you, really work even harder and kind of give you almost like a second life in that regard. And I think with Mythy and also just the general like supports in Europe, like I don't think you're gonna see huge mechanical differences between most of the supports in Europe right now. And I think a guy like Mythy, if we are in a world where, let's just say mechanically he's gonna have issues, which I don't think is gonna be the case, but let's just pretend it is, he still brings a million things as a Shotcaller or as a leader outside of the game for the team. So we knew there was, even the worst case scenario, there was still extreme value to get from Mythy, especially with Patrick, who's only 18 years old. But we also know that with the kind of motivation he brings in now, that like the individual level of Mythy is definitely just going to be way better in Europe than it was last year in North America. But honestly, as a fan, I fully understand the concerns. Like Yellowstar went to North America, had a terrible year, came back to Fnatic, and it didn't go well. I think we're going to see a different story here, but I understand why fans are concerned. But I asked them that they trust in Mythy, and let him show you what he can do this year, and then judge him after.
Show it on the Rift. That's always the best answer to give.
Show it on the Rift. That's true. Show it on the Rift.
It's like when people flame me for my predictions, especially like sometimes even team members of a team flame me for like my spring split predictions and stuff. And like, how could you play so solo? And like, just play, you know, like prove me wrong. That's all there is to it. Like, just how it is. One final concern of the community that I feel like you might want to address a bit more in depth is the topic of flying from Copenhagen to Berlin. Now. And this one maybe a bit shorter than the previous one. So from Refresh's perspective, from your perspective, what are the upsides that people don't understand, and why are the downsides not as big as people think?
Right. So I guess starting with the flight itself and just explaining that, and then touching a little bit, I guess, on the downside. I think a lot of people understand the upside. They're just scared of what does it mean to travel. First of all, you just took the flight. The flight itself is like 45 to like 55 maximum minutes, you know, and that is with, you know, getting in the plane, you start taking off, you fly up, you're in the air and you land again. So it is an extremely short flight to take. And the travel from the airport for us here from our office or from our apartments, which is right next to our office, is 10, 12 minutes with car. You actually go straight out on a highway and you go straight to the airport and boom, you're there. So with fast security, online check-in, not bringing a huge suitcase, because why would you? Going from office, airport to Berlin is about like 2 hours, maximum 2 hours with the whole thing. Like how long did it take you to get here?
Yeah, approximately like 1.5, 2 hours maximum.
So 2 hours is even aimed pretty high here, you know. Like I'm putting it at the top, you know. It could even be shorter than that, depending on how quickly we can get in. So the travel distance is not very long. We plan on traveling down Thursday evening, and then we will have like a gaming office like the one we're sitting in now in Berlin, so that we can play and practice in Berlin as well. And then we don't fly back again, we stay until the Sunday when we fly back. So there is no travel in between the game days, which was another concern I saw people raised. So it's very limited amount of travel per week. If you can't handle a 1 hour flight twice per week, then there's issues. So that's kind of why we think that's not going to be a problem. The upsides then of Copenhagen for us is, I mean, first of all, the office we're sitting in right now, where we have Astralis, we have Refresh, the entire organization behind Astralis and Origen now, and all the people working here. So we're able to be a lot more efficient, and we're able to actually create like a real office environment where everyone can help each other. Like we're gonna have exercises and meetings with Astralis and Origen at the same time. These like, if you're an Origen player, there's for sure a ton of things you can learn from the best Counter-Strike team, maybe ever. About being a professional and like working in this environment. So we think there's a lot of upside there. We also think Copenhagen as a city, once we get past the winter, is offering a lot of really nice things. Like we got brand new apartments for the players, which are close to the office and very close to the center of the city, which we already know from the players that they really like those facilities. And we think we could get a better setup here than what we could get in Berlin. At least, you know, for the first year, for sure. So, and then I guess the last one is Casper, as I mentioned earlier, and that performance team. They're all based in Copenhagen, you know, because they all work with Danish sports athletes and teams. So in order for us to utilize them full time, we need to be here with them. So there's a lot of upside in that way for us with being in Denmark. It also allows us to engage more with the Nordic community by being here, right? And that's one thing when you come in and you have Astralis as your sister team. Like Astralis, it's the Danish like brand. They're mainstream in Denmark, right? So we think we can be able to do some of the same with Origen. So I think the upside just heavily outweighs the downside of the travel, because we tried to make sure the travel was as limited as possible, and that the setup we had in Berlin was good enough for the players to not feel like, oh my God, I have to sit and just wait for 3 days before I have to play a game, you know, like there is an actual office you can play in. So it's not going to be too different for them.
Yeah, because like I feel like there was maybe not quite enough communication from you guys on that, and because like I'm even yeah, okay,
we
fair.
wanted to show this obviously, and we're gonna show this with some of the stuff we're gonna do. First, we wanted to set it up, you know, but then yeah, you're right. Like we started talking about it, people asking questions, and we were like, hey, we answered in the Reddit AMA. We did answer it there, but you are correct. This could have been a huge announcement.
Maybe just a Twitter post, you know, just post a picture of with like, hey, this is the TLDR.
I actually thought about doing it. I don't know why I didn't do it.
Yeah, that's what I ask myself every day. But yeah, in that regard, I can already expect the Brazilian flame in the YouTube comments for calling Astralis potentially the best Counter-Strike team of all time. So that's gonna be fun.
I mean, at this point, you know, with the amount of titles they have won in a row, or not in a row, but like in 2018, like, I mean, we're at least getting to the point where they're tied for best ever. I have a question for you.
Sure.
Because you asked me about my roster, and I was biased, right? A lot of people will say I was biased, right? What is your opinion on our roster?
So I did that on stream, twitch.tv/ShotcallerGG. We did some free, yeah. But we did some with some community people, all the shoutouts to the Discord people and everything. We did, or I did my predictions, because like rosters weren't official yet, but I knew all the rosters except for SK, because but so I did my predictions there, and I did it with the good old Euphoria scale, and I put Astralis, Origin, sorry, I'm like mixing things up at this point, but I put you guys as like A+ tier, and I put, I mean, Fnatic, Misfits, and G2 as S tier. You guys are A+, and then I put another team at Vitality? Vitality at A. But I do think, like, 4th is realistically the place where I put you guys. So.
I think that's very fair. Very, very fair. There are, for some, like, there's obviously question marks that will always be on every roster. We, again, as I said, I think we have a really good mix. And I think you're definitely going to see some of our individual players, a guy like Patrick, shine a lot in Spring Split.
I'm very excited. I mean, the point, like, the reason why I added the plus to the A was I realistically can see that team still, like, beat, you know, Fanatics and G2 and Misfits and stuff. Whereas, like, with a B+ team, it's kind of like, you know, that's going to be a tough matchup. But
I would put us on your ranking, so just based on paper, I think I would put at least, I mean, definitely Vitality not under us, but like next to us, at the very least. Coming off Worlds as well, keeping the roster except for Jungle, and getting Mowgli, who is most likely a really, really good addition. We have to see how he plays, but I think the Vitality lineup is still going to be super good. I probably have more questions regarding the top 3 teams than some others might have. And that's just based on having watched for many, many years super teams get hyped up and then never living up to expectations.
Elements 2.0, let's go, guys!
There's a lot there. Like there's a lot of things where the name value someone brings doesn't always match what that person is actually going to do or how that person is going to fit with the team. Like if you take G2 as an example, like the big thing that stands out to me as a potential concern, I mean, one that could just get punished for being way too aggro. Like, you're going to see G2 go ham every game. If the meta is like, you know, Worlds with 20 minutes of just pure fighting, like, the lineup is insane, right? But I can just see really high highs, but also low lows for this kind of setup. Because I think they might be lacking that balance where not everyone wants to be the guy who gives 10-0 and pushes to the enemy turret. So that's going to be interesting to follow. Fnatic will be good. I actually would put Fnatic
as first.
I would put, if I had to rank like 1 to 10, I would put Fnatic first. I mean, they kept 4 out of 5 of the roster. That was fantastic.
4 out of 6.
Well, 4 out of 6, and they have they have Youngbuck still. They have Nemesis, who I think is going to be really good. I'm not calling him the new Caps by any means, but I think he's going to be good. The question is obviously like, will he be able to carry as hard as Caps if you put the same resources into him? That's probably a no, but they still have Whippo, they still have Reckless, they have Broxer, who was like absolutely amazing, and Hylissang in this meta is fantastic, so to me, Fnatic is still on paper the number one team going into the split.
It also feels like a team that was like always playing. I mean, they're obviously always playing heavily towards Caps, and it's just like when you take out Caps, but like when the entire team is functioning around, okay, just play around mid lane and just like try to get him ahead, and then we'll just kind of snowball from there. And if stuff goes wrong, we still have Reckless just carrying the late game kind of thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a lot easier to pluck some like a mid laner out of that team and plug a new mid laner in rather than in other positions. Like it would be harder, honestly, to like replace someone like Roxa from that team.
I think, I mean, yeah, you can definitely make a case for that. I think for the world class ceiling, losing Caps really hurts them.
Yeah.
When it became, if it's like going back to the world final we're talking about. But if you look at the EU LCS finals they played against Schalke, Caps was not the big carry of that series. He didn't need to be.
Played amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they had late game wins, with Reckless. They had early game impacts, from someone like Broxah. Source was actually amazing in that final as well, but obviously now it's Whippo there. So we know that they have a carry top lane. We know they have a great early game jungler. Nemesis is a really strong laner. And we know they have a very solid bot lane that then late game, especially with Reckless, can be a big carry. So to me, that lineup on paper in the LEC is still the number one. Team.
They won't realistically have any problems. It's still like so many insane players on so many positions. And then Misfits, I mean, that's a super team as well.
Yes, it is. But just like with G2, it's one of those super teams where I need to see it in action first before I'm fully buying into the hype.
Okay.
If people were criticizing Mithy in NA, Febiven in Summer Split NA did not exactly have the greatest split either. Spring Split, he was good. But in Summer Split, it fell apart, right? And Febiven has always been the kind of player he's extremely solid. He's very consistent on a good team, but he's not necessarily the guy who like gets an early kill, then he goes top lane and wrecks that guy, then he goes bot lane and wrecks that guy, and he just like 1v9s the entire game. Like he likes to play a very safe laning phase into then strong team fighting. So he's not necessarily the most like super explosive player. And the same thing can be said for Source up in top lane. So there is when you look at the lineup, I want to see how they do in a very super early game meta. I think Maxwell is an amazing jungler, fantastic jungler, and he will be able to do a ton of work. But I just want to see early game from Misfits. Before, and also Gorilla, who's obviously an older support, right? Where's his level at individually compared to, let's say, Mickey that they had last year, who is known to just be mechanically extremely gifted. So I think there is enough question marks for me around G2 and Misfits to put them under Fnatic, which is why I don't put them in the same like 3 rows.
So it's just like Fnatic at S and then like 4 A-tier teams?
I mean, I guess I would accept that in my Euphoria scale. Obviously, me putting Origin in there. Some people might disagree, but I'm putting us up there with the rest.
I agree.
But yeah, I would, if I had to do that, like the SA, I would put Fnatic S. Yeah, those 4 A's, Vitality, us, and then underneath, I'm looking at Schalke Spice. I actually think Schalke ended up getting a lineup that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, fight for 6th place will be very exciting.
Oh, I mean 5th place as well. Honestly, let's not write them out of that one. And then I think under Splice Schalke, we go a step down again, and then ranking XL, Rogue, and SK right now, that's hard, man.
I mean, SK, I literally don't know anything about.
I didn't even know the full lineup yet, actually. So
I feel like nobody does.
That's really hard. And XL and Rogue, those are the kind of teams where there could be big surprises, and they could suddenly make it into playoffs. But there's also the same case where it just becomes one of the teams who lacks a bit before they can compete with the top teams. But I mean, it is best of one, and it is a spring split where we've had a ton of new rosters. Like, I can easily see one of those teams start off really well. Like Rocket. Yeah, like Rocket last year had like the 4-5-0 start or something. We were like, whoa, Rocket, man, they're doing it. And then they actually started like in Summer Split crumbling down. But they made playoffs in spring, right? With Schalke
when they tied every single week.
1-1 every week, man. But it just shows there's a lot of things that I try to look at BO5s, and then I think those teams will be weaker than the other teams.
We'll look at that. I find it interesting, just like one more curveball, you don't need to answer that, just an observation how like Misfits and G2 are essentially two polar opposites of building a super team, with Misfits, with your argument as well, arguably being or could be too conservative and like too late game heavy, and like what are they going to show in the early game, and G2 is like crush it from the start, you know.
It's true.
And so like we'll probably see one of the two really succeed and one of the two maybe not succeed, and it could also be like meta dependent and stuff, so that will be a very interesting observation to be made.
Brains versus brawls, I guess, is the way people normally say it. Well, it's just I had this theory, like if you have Maxlaw, Soaz, Gorilla on a team, I feel like you're going to be really smart. Like you're going to have some extremely smart, like vocal players. But if you have Caps, Perks, and Wonder, I feel like you're just going to try and crush laning phase as hard as possible. So there are definitely two opposites. I actually like that a lot. And I mean, let's just be honest here. This offseason for LEC was just awesome, honestly. Like we have so many new rosters. We have managed to keep most of the talent, at least the top tier talent, like the top tier. Caps didn't go to North America, Nuke Dog, whatever, you know.
Was the only one leaving, right?
I think Niski left, and that's probably the only one where you can be like, okay, would have loved to keep Niski. He's a great player. But everything else, and then you have like Gorilla coming over, you have Fanatics splitting up the top laners, so there's two teams who can benefit from that setup. Nemesis coming in, Humanoid and Abadakis, so like new rookie mid laners. I think there's just so many rosters to actually be really excited about, and there's so many different storylines. Like G2 versus Fnatic rivalry is huge. Fnatic versus Origen is back. You know, like this is something where
G2 versus SK, no?
Yeah,
Fnatic versus SK.
The El Clasico thing kind of fizzled out some time ago, but I mean, I guess for the hype we can bring it back. At least, hey, let's at least give SK the first couple of times they do play against Fnatic to say, can we get the rivalry back? And also SK versus Ocelot. Sure. Let's give them a chance before we write it off. Sure. Yeah, that's some great storylines coming in. I am very sad I'm actually not a caster for this split, because
I can feel it.
Damn, I want to just talk about these lineups. I want to try and make predictions. I want to like just talk about the things I like, things I dislike for everything, and then I want to be right and I want to be wrong. I've already told Vedius on his power ranking he's wrong. My goal for this split is to just be looking at Vedius and everything he says for every cast and just listen and be like, you're wrong here. But no, of course not.
You've become another Redditor, just like...
It's true, actually. And then also I'm desperately trying to get him to invite me to Euphoria. I have to admit they actually did invite me twice already and had to decline both times. So I'm very sad about that. I'm very happy I missed the Spider-Man one they did. I was supposed to be on that, but I couldn't. I watched a little bit of it. I was like, this is weird. So I'm okay with missing that one personally, but hopefully I can be on the next one, Dracos. If you invite me in a day, I can actually be available.
Would be exciting for sure. So yeah, that's pretty much sums it up for me as well. Are there like, what's the future looking like for you? I mean, like you literally stepped down as arguably, debatably, but arguably, and I would make the case for it, the most popular Western caster in League of Legends, to accept this job at Refresh and Origin and to build a team. Is that just gonna be, you know, the top goal at the end of the day, to make the best team of all time rather than just talking about it?
Yes, when you put it like that, yes. Building the greatest team with the best infrastructure, a team that fans can be really proud of, is the goal. Obviously, having the Origin fans behind us now puts a lot of pressure on us. Pressure we like, because we want to show to them that we can make, you know, a super sick organization with a great roster. So I like the pressure. I felt it already when we announced the lineup, and the negative comments were people being mad at us that we on paper didn't have a lineup that was like better than G2's. And I was like, okay, this is good. This means that we need to be constantly on our toes. And if it was some of the comments were effectively negative that we were just a playoff team. I'm like, that's a nice bar we're setting here. I can accept that, but it means, we need to show up. And
I mean, when your sister team is Australis, you got some big boots to fill.
Yeah. I've been trying to tell people internally, hey, Australis didn't win day one. They needed some time before they became the best. Don't put too much pressure on me. But they're like, hey, come on, we're winning every title right now. Origin needs to do the same, but of course not. Like, let's not put unnecessary pressure on anyone. That's why we're saying playoffs in spring. Right. We know it needs to take a bit of time to build like a roster that can, really win the whole thing and so on. I'm sure the fans understand that as well. And I think they're just passionate, They just want to see Origin do well. And I share that same passion. And that's why I took this job. Because I loved my job before. I will never be tired of casting. But to me, this felt like a great next step in my career. And I love to challenge myself. And this is something that's a little bit familiar, but still very, very new. And it's just been very, very exciting to step into this role and kind of learn everything. Because like every day I show up and I'm like, everything's under control. And then an hour later, I'm like, there's so many things we got to do now. How do I do this? What about this? Let's do this here. And it's just really, really fun, but also stressful. And now I have this thing building inside me, which is just the first game. And everything, so far is going great. And I'm happy and I'm proud. But you start building up first game. And the first game you play just means more than the second game you play because it's the first one. It's when we get to show up for the first time. I don't know who we're playing, but if Riot put us against like Fnatic or something, it's like Origin Fnatic, day one, that could just be insane. And you just want to win, The players just want to win. You just want to show, kapow, here we are. So I'm really looking forward to it, but it's gonna be stressful next. What is it, like month or something?
18th of January, so yeah, next month essentially.
Yeah, basically, and I really want to win.
You're already getting fiddly.
I am actually just thinking about it. I want to sit in that studio, not stand on the caster desk, but sit behind for the game, and then I want to walk to the analyst desk after, sit down, and I want Shox to not make fun of me for losing, but to praise us for winning. That is right now in my head the dream scenario.
The number one goal. I love it.
There we go.
Thank you so much for your time. That was a beautiful finish, as expected, from one of the greatest Western casters of all time, of course. Again, thank you very much for your time. At the end of each interview, we'd like our guests to do a hashtag.
A hashtag?
Yeah, for all the people that watched right until the end, who are dedicated.
Yeah. Hashtag talks too much.
Okay.
Or hashtag can't do short answers.
I like that one better.
Hashtag can't do short answers.
That's a little bit less negative. It's still funny.
Fine.
Yeah. Hashtag can't do short answers in the comments if you watched until the end. So Deficio also knows how much of a dedicated fan of either him or Origin or both, or Australis maybe, you are. Thank you very much for watching. This was Darius from the Shotcaller. I hope you had a good day. See you guys then. Bye-bye.
We'd especially like to thank Krzysztof Buchnevich for his support, and if you too would like to support our work, make sure to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/theshotcallergg. We very much appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller here in the beautiful city of Copenhagen, joined here by Martin Deficio Linde. Is that actually the correct way to pronounce Linge? Lünge. Lünge is way easier actually for me as a German.
I think only Freak actually. Freak is the only caster. Him and Quickshot are the only casters who get it right. Everyone else, like Captain Flowers, is far and away the worst.
What was this?
He's like Lünge or something. Like he just goes like all in, man.
It's like this stereotype about Nordics and stuff. And
just so. I'm not sure if the camera's on or not, but the way to explain it is, if you are confused regarding how to pronounce Danish words, always assume that we are lazy in the way we speak. So most of the time you can just start ignoring letters. So like Lünge, the G doesn't do anything. It's just a Lünge, whatever, and then you're just done.
Yeah, like a Danish mate of mine said that Danish is basically when Germans are drunk. So they're like,
Probably.
that's what.